NXT starts off with Trick Williams calls out Pete Dunne for what happened at NXT No Mercy. Ethan Page ends up coming out instead, and then he ends up just bragging to Trick Williams about what happened at NXT No Mercy, bragging about being NXT champion. Trick ends up saying that he's gonna come back for his NXT title eventually, but he just gotta handle Pete Dunne first. Then Pete Dunne tries to sneak attack Trick. He tries to sneak attack Trick Williams, but Trick Williams ends up seeing it. They end up having a brawl. Security has to break them up. This feud has been really good, and on this show they end up brawling like 4 times on the show, which led into a match later in the show, which was also really good, bro. This feud has been really intense. I have loved what they've been doing. This feud is definitely getting more and more personal. They like it was ridiculous how many times they brawled in this show tonight. They kept on brawling every time they see. It was basically on site. This feud is the definition of on site. Whenever they see each other, they are attacking each other immediately. I have been loving what they've been doing with this feud with Pete Dunne. Next, we end up getting a number one contendership match for the NXT Tag Team titles between Gallus, Hank and Tank, and the Rascals. I'm not going to speak too much on this match. Towards the end of the match, Joe Coffey tries to interfere, but then Javon Evans comes out and ends up stopping him. Then out of nowhere, the Good Brothers also interfered in the match as well. They interfere, and then Hank and Tank and Gallus, one of the members of each in the ring, they end up taking each other out, which allowed the Rascals to take advantage and end up picking up the victory. Very obvious that they was going to win. It made no sense for Gallus or Hank and Tank to face Nathan Axiom. The Rascals ends up winning, and they are the new number one contenders for the NXT champions, for the NXT title. So it'd be interesting to see, will they pull the trigger and actually win? Doubt it, but that should be a banger of a match. Now we get Lexis King and Ora Menta. I've been loving what they've been doing with this feud, having this personal feud, mentioning each other's fathers in the picture. I love what they've been doing. Towards the end of the match, Lexis King starts talking to Ora Menta. He has him in the corner. He starts mentioning that his father should have burned. Then Ormenta ends up getting angry. He ends up getting frustrated, taking all that aggression, making a comeback, but he gets a little too aggressive in the corner. The ref has to stop him. The ref ends up pulling him away, which allowed Lexis King to end up taking advantage, get a roll-up pin by cheating by having his foot on the ropes, and he ends up picking up the victory. After the match, though, Ormenta ends up attacking, trying to chase after Lexis King. I love what they're doing. I love the feud of them attacking each other's fathers in this feud. I love this. This is way better than what they was doing with Eddie Thorpe and Lexis King, so I'm glad they move on. This is really good. And Ormenta, I'm going to be honest, I did not like him at first, but he is really starting to grow on me week after week, week after week. He's really starting to grow on me. I'm really starting to like Ormenta as a character ever since Noam Dar have been injured, unfortunately, but I've been liking what they've been doing with Ormenta as of recently, though. Now we get a good segment between Obafembi and the family. Obafembi ends up interrupting their little conversation, mentioning, the victory that happened at No Mercy. Adriana Rizzo basically ends up saying that he got lucky and that the Don would be back to face him. Obafembi, this was a hilarious. Obafembi ends up coming back, ends up saying that big words from a small woman, and then he ends up saying that in many cultures, women are only supposed to be seen, not be heard, which I thought was hilarious because they are really like pushing that thin line there. Then Tony D'Angelo ends up interrupting. Of course, he's upset, of course, going to defend, one of his fellow family members in Adriana. Sets up a match between Channing Stacks and Obafembi, which ends up happening later in the show. This was overall a good segment, so they're clearly going to continue to build upon this rivalry of Obafembi, giving him Tony D'Angelo. Tony D'Angelo got to try to overcome the dominant force that is Obafembi. So I'm interested to see how this plays out because I am loving this already because that segment was hilarious to me. That I love what Obafembi ended up saying because that was a hilarious segment to me, man. But I'm excited to see what the build up towards their next match because I can't wait. Now we get a match between Tanner Paxley and Rosemary. They're still building upon the feud of Wendy Choo and Tanner Paxley. What happened at NXT No Mercy with Tanner Paxley getting a little bit of payback because Wendy Choo ended up attacking her. So they're still building upon the feud. Wendy Choo ended up sending Rosemary to fight Tanner Paxley. Tanner Paxley ends up picking up the victory. After the match, though, Wendy Choo and Rosemary ends up attacking Tanner Paxley. They're constantly attacking her. She's all by herself. Out of nowhere, Lyra Valkyria ends up making her return and coming out for the save. Lyra Valkyria is back on NXT. It's not going to be long term, of course. It's going to be short term. They end up having their good moment. We know the history between Tanner Paxley and Lyra Valkyria, their friendship. And Lyra Valkyria says that she's here to stay at NXT to help out Tatum Paxley. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. I love this dynamic. This is one of my favorite like interactions of like, I don't want to call it a feud because they weren't really feuding, but this is one of my favorite like things that have happened in WWE in like recent times, especially with the women's division. I have loved Lyra Valkyria's title reign, mainly largely due to the Tatum Paxley friendship. I have loved that friendship very heavily. I love what they did here. This is great. This was amazing. I can't wait to see what's next. Most likely they're going to win that feud because Lyra Valkyria is not losing on NXT. She's just not. But I'm excited to see how they play this story up though. Now we get Trick Williams versus Pete Dunne in a really good match. Them two just going at it, very chaotic. Even before the match started, Trick Williams making his entrance, they end up brawling immediately. This has been a really good feud. I really love what they did here. Towards the end of the match, though, they're on the barricade. They're like in the barricade crowd area. They're going back and forth. They're towards like the announcer table. Their backs are turned against the announce table. They're going back and forth. Neither of them wants to go towards the announce table, but then they ended up doing I don't know what it's called, but basically they both end up pulling each other where they both landed on their backs towards the announce table, breaking the table, and it ended in a double countout. Then after the match, they didn't just end there. They ended up brawling, continue to brawl even after the match, which I find amazing. This feud has really picked up a lot of steam. And at first, I thought this feud was just good. It was solid, but this feud has really been picking up. I am even more of a fan of Pete Dunne than I already was, and I was already high on him. Trick Williams is looking really good in this feud. After the match, Ava basically ends up saying that there needs to be a definitive winner, so she ends up making it a last man standing match next week. So next week it's gonna be Pete Dunne versus Trick in a last man standing match, which I can't wait to see. I don't know how that's gonna play out though, because I don't know who loses that match, and I don't know. It's probably gonna be interferences. Well, actually, yeah, I don't know how that match will play out. That's very interesting to see how that match will play out because I don't know who takes the loss in that match, per se, especially because it's not on a pay per view. It's a regular episode of NXT. But I think the next episode is on CW, so maybe that's gonna be like a big, like they're gonna treat it like a PLE. Now we get a Ridge Holland vignette. He finally reveals his motivations for turning on Chase U. He ends up saying that he basically turned because they took the loss on NXT No Mercy. He mentions how he waited so long to be a champion and that he's not a champion no more because of other people's mediocrity. He ends up mentioning that he's the reason why they won the tag titles. He brought them back up from the top, and he ends up mentioning that he's the reason why Chase U is at the top right now because when he wasn't with them, they were struggling. Then he ends up mentioning he starts criticizing Duke Hudson, Riley Osborne, how they criticized him for not being genuine and not deserving to be in Chase U, all of that. Then he starts mentioning NXT Heatwave and how the build up towards Heatwave, he was the one that helped them get the number one contendership, but then they end up losing the tag match because he wasn't there. And he says he plans on destroying Chase U. This is really good. This is the Ridge Holland I've been waiting for. This is something I can get invested in because I was sick and tired of the fake teases of him going back and forth between babyface, heel. This is something that Ridge been needing to give him that edge, give him that it factor. This is what we've been needing. He finally feels important. I'm actually excited about Ridge Holland now, which is crazy because I was like, bro, just can we just end this, bro? But I'm excited to see what's next for Ridge Holland now. Thank God they figured it out because this is what he been needing. And this vignette was actually pretty good. He sound believable. He sound actually threatening to a degree. Like this is what he's been needing. I'm actually excited to see how this story plays out. I think next week he's gonna fight Duke Hudson as well. So can't wait to see how this plays out. But this is what he's been needing because he's been needing this since he arrived at NXT. They tried a bunch of things. They tried some stuff with the LWO at one point, like Sean Spears, that whole thing. Like they needed something, and this is it. Hopefully it delivers because I pray this delivers because this has so much potential if booked correctly. So hopefully Shawn Michaels is able to book this right. This has a lot of potential. Next, we end up getting Joe Coffey versus Javon Evans. This match is building up their feud because Javon Evans ends up interrupting the match earlier in the show, the tag match. So Joe Coffey wants a match with Javon. Gallus was involved in this match. They was about to get the upper hand, but Cedric Alexander, of all people, ended up interfering evening the odds, which allowed Javon Evans to pick up the victory. So interested to see what's next with this feud, because I was like, because during this feud, I was like, who's going to help Javon Evans? So it's Cedric. So I don't know if they're going to continue this feud, because honestly, I don't. I will say this: I am getting more interested in Joe Coffey by this feud. I'm not interested in Gallus, but I am getting slightly more interested in Joe Coffey. Joe Coffey is getting my interest a bit, so that's a good sign. But I don't know how else you would play this feud, so hopefully they figure something out. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this interaction at all. Now we get Channing Stacks versus Obafemby. We already knew who was going to win. Channing Stacks tries to put up a good fight, but Obafemby was just overpowering, way too dominant. Obafemby, of course, was, taunting, showboating, showing his dominance towards Tony D'Angelo, building up this feud to continue. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. I don't know if Tony D'Angelo is going to do what he done with other opponents. Is he going to kidnap him like he done with Ilya Dragunov and like he did with Damon Kemp? Just saying, that would be hilarious if he actually pulls that off, because he's done it with other opponents. So I'm wondering, is he going to do it again? That would be hilarious if he actually kidnaps Obafemi to build up the feud. I would actually love to see that. They should actually do that. Actually, now that I think about it, they should actually do that towards the build up to whatever the next show. I think Halloween Havoc is. Have him get kidnapped. You done it before. Do it again. Now next, I'm not gonna speak too much on this, but I just have to highlight this because I just find it hilarious. Ashanti Adonis, bro, being this horny dude who just wants to holla at every chick in NXT is amazing. He's not important at all to any stories. Now they are building up a story between him and Eddie Thorpe, but bro, him being this horny dude who just wants to constantly get at every chick in NXT is hilarious to me. And the fact that he keeps failing to makes it even more funny. It's not an important storyline, but I just think it's very hilarious on NXT in my opinion. He's not on every show. He's like more here and there, but it is hilarious to me when he appears because he's just constantly trying to holler at every chick and constantly fail. I just find it hilarious. Now we get Jasmine Nix versus Jada Parker. This match got set up earlier in the show. This was like actually the first segment actually. Fallon Henley, JC Fatal Influence ended up making fun of Jada Parker, losing at No Mercy. Jada Parker, of course, isn't going to take kind to that, so they end up having a match. Jada Parker ends up picking up the victory. Very surprised that they end up taking the victory. After the match, though, Fatal Influence ends up attacking Jada Parker, and that's the end of the segment there. I don't understand why did they have Jada Parker win the match, especially with Fatal Influence outside of the ring. They could have just interfered. They could have just done the same thing, in my opinion. Like, I like Fatal Influence a lot. I like all the members, but if you want to have them, if you really want to make this work, you got to have them win. Like, I don't understand when I don't understand when bookers make new factions and try to hype them up just for them to lose. It doesn't make sense. If you really want to get them over, really want to show the potential of it, you got to have them win. I feel like you could have just done the same angle, but just have you could have just had Jasmine Nix win via cheating. Then you could have done the same attack. You could have just done both. You could have done both. I don't get the reasoning for them losing and then attacking. It doesn't justify them attacking. They're healed. They would have attacked either way. Like, that's just me. Maybe I'm tripping, but I feel like you could have just gave them the win and then done the same thing, in my opinion. Now we get the main event. Roxanne Perez, she cuts a promo. She basically talks about how she's going to remain champion and that Giulia or whoever is not going to make a difference. I will say this. Typically, Roxanne Perez isn't the best promo worker. This promo was actually solid. This is something Roxanne Perez needs to continue to do. One of the main issues, even though Roxanne Perez is one of my favorites, one of the main issues I have with her is that she does the same thing that Liv Morgan does, is where they try to drag out a word or two and they try to like say it in like a very high-pitched way here and there. Right here, she was just talking normal. Now, she was still in her heel gimmick, of course, but she talked regular. That's something she needs to do more often instead of like trying to like change her voice. Like, just talk normal and she sounds pretty decent on a microphone. But then she ends up mentioning, Giulia, of course, and then the lights go off. And of course, all of us is thinking Giulia, but they end up baiting us and then end up being Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green then comes out, ends up saying that she wants an opportunity at Roxanne Perez. Then the lights go out again, and then it's finally reveals to actually be Giulia. Giulia comes down the ring, the crowd's going crazy. Chelsea Green tries to attack Giulia, but Giulia ends up taking her out. And then Giulia basically ends up saying that she wants Perez at CW. So it looks like we're getting that match very soon, and I can't wait to see. This was overall a really great episode of NXT. I can't wait to see what happens next week, man. But this was a really exciting show. You guys let me know your opinions down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.